Jace had never been the kind of man to seek out trouble. In fact, he had a remarkable talent for avoiding it, usually by hiding behind maintenance panels and pretending the alarm system was probably fine. That morning, however, the orbital sensors on Helios were throwing a flurry of warnings that didn't make any sense, which was enough to prick the tiny spark of curiosity Jace usually kept well under control. The distress signal was weak, irregular, and coming from a fragmenting sector of the asteroid belt that had been off-limits for decades. Most of the research staff shrugged it off, muttering that the sensors were probably drunk again, which, in a station orbiting a planet with 3 suns, was technically plausible. Jace, however, had a thing for small mysteries, and besides, the station's synth coffee machine was broken, leaving him nothing better to do than chase imaginary ghosts in space. He suited up in his personal spacecraft, the Pocket Comet, a vessel that looked like it had been assembled from salvaged vending machines, a bicycle frame, and a retired janitorial droid. Maneuvering through the asteroid belt, he cursed under his breath as the navigation system hiccuped, sending him into a slow yet deeply embarrassing spin. "Not a graceful entrance, but at least no one's watching," he muttered, ignoring the fact that he was in the middle of a sector where observation drones were likely watching everything he did. The faint glow ahead revealed the source of the signal, a shard of a broken probe orbiting lazily among the rocks. Clinging to it was a figure that seemed impossibly delicate, yet resolute. She looked human, or at least the kind of human who might show up in a vintage holofilm, but her ears extended elegantly, almost like the delicate wings of some fantastical bird. Her eyes, a shimmering shade of amethyst, tracked his approach with a mixture of suspicion and bemusement. Hi," Jace said, because apparently that was his standard greeting in life-threatening situations. The alien, or Leora, as he would later learn to call her, responded with a sound that might have been words, might have been music, or maybe a subtle critique of his choice in spaceflight uniforms. Whatever it was, it set his teeth on edge and yet fascinated him in equal measure. Carefully, he extended the docking clamp and pulled her aboard. She didn't resist, but she did shoot him a look that said, unmistakably, "I hope you know what you're doing, and I hope your ship isn't full of crumbs." Once inside, the chaos of their meeting was punctuated by a small explosion as one of his tools, probably the one he had borrowed from the janitorial droid, reacted poorly to Leora's electromagnetic aura. Sparks flew, sending Jace tumbling backward into a console, which promptly projected a holomap of the galaxy upside down. "Perfect," he muttered, untangling himself. "First contact. Nailed it. Smooth as space sludge." Leora tilted her head, twitching those long ears, which he decided might be a kind of galactic eyebrow, and produced a sound that was undeniably amused. In the hours that followed, Jace learned 2 critical facts. 1, Leora was being hunted by a shadowy galactic corporation that specialized in collecting sentient beings like exotic pets. And 2, she had a peculiar sense of humor that involved subtle sabotage of his already questionable piloting skills. Every time he thought he had a handle on the ship, a stray pulse of her energy would make the comms blare with old Earth sitcom laughter, or flip the controls just enough to send him spinning toward a rogue asteroid. And yet, despite the constant danger, despite the odd musical warnings and the occasional sparks singeing his eyebrows, he felt a connection forming, an unspoken agreement that they were, improbably, a team now. 1 part human stubbornness, 1 part alien elegance, and both part ridiculousness, hurtling through the void of space, neither entirely sure if they'd survive, but both silently agreeing that if they did, it would be the most absurd adventure either had ever experienced. The asteroid belt loomed behind them, glittering like cosmic confetti, and for the first time in weeks, Jace allowed himself a laugh. "You know," he said, glancing at Leora, who simply arched one long ear in what he assumed was approval, "I think we might just get along. Or die spectacularly. Either way, it'll be memorable." And with that, the Pocket Comet lurched forward into the unknown, carrying a man who had saved an alien no one noticed, and an alien who was about to make sure he'd never be able to hide again. The hum of the Pocket Comet was oddly comforting, a steady vibration beneath Jace's fingertips that reminded him life in space wasn't all bad, especially when compared to the chaos of dodging corporate drones in the asteroid belt. Leora, seated across from him, had her long ears tilted back as she fiddled with a small device that seemed to emit bursts of light and an occasional soft pop. Each pop coincided with a startled squeak from Jace. "Is that supposed to happen?" he asked, bracing for the inevitable disaster. Leora's melodic response sounded suspiciously like a chuckle. "Apparently, yes," he muttered, realizing that she was demonstrating some kind of alien tech he had no hope of understanding. He suspected that part of her plan involved making him look as incompetent as possible, which, given his performance in the last asteroid field, wasn't difficult. Navigating the labyrinthine passages of the galactic outer rim was supposed to be straightforward, at least according to the map displayed on the holoscreen. Yet, each turn seemed to lead them into more trouble. One moment, they were skimming past glowing nebula clouds. The next, Jace was pulling evasive maneuvers to avoid a flotilla of errant cargo ships drifting aimlessly, powered down but stubbornly in his path. Leora's presence turned even the most mundane maneuver into a mini-adventure. When a stray ion flare threatened to send them careening into a cluster of space debris, she nudged a console with a delicate hand, causing a magnetic pulse that gently nudged the pocket comet away. Jace fell backward in his seat. "I see, so your solution is mostly fireworks," he said, staring at her in mock horror. Leora's ears twitched in amusement, and she produced a sound that was halfway between a sigh and laughter. Their journey became a delicate balance of danger and absurdity. At one point, a patrol drone spotted their ship and immediately assumed hostile intent. Jace panicked and flipped switches at random, which caused the ship's lights to blink in a disco pattern and set off the emergency coffee boiler. Steam and sparks filled the cabin, giving the impression of a spaceship under siege, which may have convinced the drone to report back that the vessel was likely a malfunctioning entertainment unit. Leora, unflustered, floated over to him, her fingers tracing the patterns of holographic controls with ease. "You might want to read the manual," she said in a tone that suggested she had said it many times to many doomed pilots. Jace groaned. "Manual? In space? The closest thing to a manual is a snack wrapper from 312 light-years ago." Between evasions, they shared stories in broken, half-musical sentences. Jace discovered that Leora had a peculiar fondness for Earth jokes, particularly puns about gravity and time dilation, which she delivered with impeccable timing, despite the fact that neither of them fully understood the physics. In turn, he regaled her with tales of human clumsiness, which she found endlessly entertaining, often tilting her ears in what he interpreted as a sign of glee. There was a strange comfort in these exchanges, a reprieve from the tension that had been building since he first rescued her. Humor became their shield, laughter a small rebellion against the cold, endless void outside. As the hours stretched into days, the pair learned to anticipate one another's moves. Jace adjusted to her electromagnetic quirks. She learned to tolerate his frantic hand gestures and propensity to hit the wrong button at the worst time. They even began to play small games during long stretches of travel, dodging rogue satellites, betting on which nebula would change colors first, or seeing how long Jace could survive a simulated zero-gravity spin without screaming. Every near miss, every unplanned loop around a rogue planet only deepened their connection. By the time the pocket comet approached the edges of the corporate hunting zones, they were no longer a human and an alien clinging to survival. They were a team, laughing in the face of danger, absurdly alive amid the cold machinery of space, each joke a tether to the fragile certainty that, somehow, they might make it to the other side. The galaxy seemed unusually quiet as Jace piloted the pocket comet into the outskirts of the neutral zone. The space between corporate-controlled systems and the uncharted reaches where no one really bothered to send patrols. Leora floated nearby, her long ears brushing against the edge of the cabin console, eyes glowing faintly as she hummed an alien tune that had, somehow, become Jace's favorite background music. He realized, with a peculiar mix of pride and disbelief, that they had survived more than anyone could have reasonably expected. The asteroid field, the patrol drones, the malfunctioning navigation, and even his own tendency to panic at the slightest inconvenience. Somewhere along the way, the quiet technician who spent his days hiding behind panels had become someone capable of quick decisions, ingenuity under pressure, and, if he was honest, heroic bravery that had nothing to do with coffee machines. The piece, however, was deceptive. News of the rescue, of his act of hiding Leora and protecting her from corporate capture, had spread far beyond his expectations. Data streams across multiple star systems were buzzing with mentions of the human who saved the long-eared alien, often accompanied by embellishments involving explosions, narrow escapes, and heroic quips he never actually said. Leora, watching him nervously check a holo display, raised an eyebrow and twitched her ears. "You're famous," she said, though her tone carried the same hint of amusement she always had when he tripped over his own feet. "Famous," Jace repeated, glancing at a ticker feed of interstellar news channels, alien forums, and even a few human tabloids. "I was trying to quietly save someone, not start a fan club." Despite the absurdity, their reputation became a tool. When the corporation's fleet finally traced them to a border checkpoint, expecting a compliant target, they instead encountered a small ship surrounded by rumors, miscommunications, and holographic projections that made it appear far larger and more dangerous than it actually was. Jace, improvising with Leora's guidance, unleashed a series of electromagnetic pulses that temporarily scrambled the corporate scanners, while holographic images of dancing starships projected into the void, confusing the attackers. One particularly aggressive drone ended up chasing its own shadow for several minutes before self-destructing out of sheer confusion. Leora's laughter filled the cabin, musical and bright, and Jace couldn't help but laugh too, realizing that even in the face of potential destruction, humor had become a weapon just as powerful as any pulse cannon. After the corporate threat dissipated, they found themselves in a secluded orbital garden belonging to a coalition of neutral species. It was quiet here, filled with strange, luminescent plants and gentle streams of air that seemed to hum in resonance with Leora's voice. They floated among the gardens, examining alien flora and attempting jokes that were sometimes lost in translation but still produced laughter, because that had become their shared language. Jace realized that the galaxy, vast and indifferent, now felt intimate. His life, once small and careful, had expanded in ways he never thought possible. Leora turned to him, ears flicking with an amused seriousness. "You changed, Jace. Not just your piloting. You've grown." He nodded, thinking of the way he had learned to improvise, trust, and find courage in moments that would have terrified him before. He had saved an alien no one saw, and now, not only was the galaxy watching, but he had also found a friend, a companion, and a reminder that bravery didn't need recognition. It needed action. As they watched the twin suns set over the metallic horizon of the orbital garden, Jace allowed himself a rare, deep breath of satisfaction. Leora hummed softly beside him, and for the first time, he didn't feel the need to hide behind panels or shy from responsibility. The galaxy was wide, unpredictable, and occasionally ridiculous, but it was theirs to navigate together. And somewhere, deep in the starlit silence, Jace realized that saving someone no one noticed had, paradoxically, made him impossible to ignore. Their laughter echoed into the void, blending with the light of distant worlds, a quiet celebration of survival, friendship, and the unlikeliest of heroes. The pocket comet drifted in the gentle gravity of the neutral zone outpost, its hull glinting softly under the pale light of a distant star. Jace sat at the helm, feet propped on the console, staring at a holo display filled with news feeds, alien forums, and countless messages from beings he had never imagined existed. His name had spread like starlight through the galaxy, attached to every embellished rumor, every retelling of the moment he had saved Leora. Some said he had single-handedly outmaneuvered a fleet of corporate drones while juggling flaming space debris. Others insisted he had somehow convinced Leora to rescue him. The truth, as always, was messier, involving a lot of panicked button pressing, ill-timed coffee explosions, and Leora's uncanny ability to manipulate electromagnetic fields in ways that made him look like a genius. Leora floated nearby, long ears swaying as she tinkered with a small device that had once caused Jace to spin uncontrollably into an asteroid. Now, it hummed quietly, a soft reminder of their shared misadventures. "You've become famous," she said, in a tone that was equal parts exasperation and amusement. Jace grinned, leaning back. "Famous, galactic hero, Starship Klutz turned legend. I think I'm supposed to feel accomplished, but mostly I feel like I need a nap." She tilted her head, producing a melodic chuckle that had become as comforting to him as the hum of the ship itself. Their time in the outpost became a curious mix of preparation and absurdity. Jace helped local engineers recalibrate the outpost's defenses, mostly by following Leora's instructions and trying not to touch anything that could spontaneously detonate, and discovered that the galaxy was, in truth, a lot smaller than the news made it seem. The corporation that had once hunted Leora had been publicly embarrassed by the viral tales of their incompetence and the Pocket Comet's improbable survival. Orders had been retracted, fleets reassigned, and somewhere deep in a corporate boardroom, executives were arguing over how a human and a long-eared alien had made them look foolish. Jace couldn't help but chuckle, imagining suited bureaucrats flailing in zero gravity, while Leora's laughter resonated through his memory. Even in the quiet moments, the two of them found ways to laugh at the universe. They experimented with alien cuisine that reacted unpredictably to gravity, raced small maintenance drones through the halls of the outpost, and traded puns that spanned multiple languages and star systems. Humor, Jace realized, had become as vital as any shield or thruster. It kept them grounded, human, and surprisingly resilient against the vast, impersonal void outside. When the time came to leave, the decision was no longer about survival but about choice. The galaxy was wide, full of unknown corners and uncharted adventures. Jace had learned to navigate it not just with skill, but with courage he hadn't known he possessed. Leora, once a being he had saved, was now a partner, a friend, and a reminder that bravery could be shared, and sometimes even enjoyed. As they launched the Pocket Comet toward the outer systems, the stars stretched into long lines around them. Jace looked at Leora, her ears catching the starlight, and realized that the quiet technician who hid behind panels had been replaced by someone who could act, laugh, and trust in the impossible. Somewhere out there, countless beings would remember his name. More importantly, he remembered himself. The galaxy, unpredictable and often ridiculous, awaited, but Jace knew that with Leora beside him, they could face anything, even improbable rescue missions, corporate fleets, or spaceborne coffee disasters, with laughter and courage intact. And as the hum of the Pocket Comet carried them forward, he allowed himself the rare pleasure of feeling complete. He had saved a life, found a friend, and discovered the hero he never imagined he could be.